Okay, so now we're looking at another Richard Wilbur poem. It's called Cottage Street, 1953, and it's a memory. Wilbur admits it might be composite, but this is an occasion when his mother-in-law, a proper New England lady, Mrs. Ward, invites him and his wife over to meet with the young Sylvia Plath, who is already known to be suicidal and is writing, we presume, weird poems such that her mom is worried. And so the purpose of this visit is for the young Richard Wilbur to speak about the life of the poet as cheerful and encouraging. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Max, first stanza, what's going on there?
Mrs. Ward is pouring the whole group tea, the whole party tea.
What does the afternoon tea with Mrs. Ward imply? I know you don't hang around New England parlors.
Well, it seems sort of like a leisurely upper class thing to do.
Yes, leisurely is the word for the life of leisure, but it doesn't feel leisurely to anybody in the room.
It's leisurely compared to the kind of work that they
they're not breaking boulders outside. No.
Sure, but it's still it's certainly, I mean, it's part of an English tradition of kind of stiffness. It's very regular. Tea always happens at a certain hour. It always involves a certain ritual.
It's a ritual. It's carefully scripted. Okay, Molly pouring tea for frightened Mrs. Plath, then turning toward the pale, slumped daughter and my wife and me. So it's all been set up. And now what happens in the second stanza?
Miss Edna Ward, is asking how everybody would like their tea. She's being very, very polite, very genteel, making it perfect. But everybody's already kind of feeling stressed out from the situation.
Who in particular is stressed out?
I think the speaker. I think Richard Wilbur.
Okay, that's going to come next. What do we know? He's definitely stressed out. Who do we know?
Mrs. Plath.
Yes, why would Mrs. Plath be nervous?
Because she knows her daughter's in danger, and she's sort of hoping that Wilbur will save her.
Or that the visit to Mrs. Ward, that this connection is going to, that some of the decorum will rub off on her daughter, but she knows that seems unlikely. Okay, Anna, now we get Wilbur, the young speaker poet. I mean, the speaker really is the poet. It is my office to exemplify the published poet. What's going on?
He's saying that Mrs. Ward has asked him to come over for tea to kind of demonstrate that a poet can not only be happy and, cheerful, be a creative spirit, but also lead a decorous life, lead a life that includes things like having tea with nice people and not running off to Brooklyn and playing with the Baroness.
I think that would be Lower Manhattan. Okay. Thus cheering Sylvia, who has wished to die. So we get information, Allie, that Sylvia is already suicidal. But what is the feeling or position of Wilbur, the poet, the speaker?
Well, he already seems kind of helpless. Or, obviously doubtful as to his ability, whether he can do that. He's definitely skeptical about
Why
this
is he
office.
half ashamed?
Well, because it's kind of, who is he necessarily?
He's in a kind of tough position. Mrs. Ward, who's his mother-in-law, who's the matriarch of the town of Wellesley, has Massachusetts has invited him over in order to play a role, and it's a role that he either is or isn't good at. Just jumping to the ultimate. We are going to go in order here, but just jumping to the ultimate. Kristen, what evidence do we have that he is in fact good at playing this role? Just quickie.
It is my office to exemplify.
Well, he's saying it's my job, but
that it's his job.
What evidence do we have overall? Max, you're smiling.
The poem.
The poem turns out to be evidence that, first of all, that he's a published poet. That, second of all, he can bring to his poetry something of the decorum of Mrs. Ward's parlor. It's the poetic instantiation of that decorum.
I mean, look at it. It's in quatrains. It's A-B rhyme.
It should cheer. It should cheer us what he's half ashamed about is that that's not going to be good enough to save Sylvia. Impotent to bless. Okay, Allie, we get to an almost Plathian conceit here. Almost Plathian, I would say. I am a stupid lifeguard. What's the extended conceit? How does it work? The poet is a lifeguard who...
Who has, Sylvia has kind of washed up on...
I don't think she's washed up. Let's see. Swept to the shallows. Oh, no, she has washed up. I'm sorry.
And, she's already too far gone before she even arrives at him.
Too far gone
There's
is
really
literally
nothing
here
else.
in the metaphor.
Yeah.
What happened before she swept up
She's
the
already
shore?
drowned. She's already immensely drowned.
Far from shore. She had been drowned. She has already been far from shore.
And stares through water now with eyes of pearl. She's not seeing anything. She's
Dave,
gone.
where does that come from?
From The Tempest.
From Shakespeare's The Tempest. Right. Immensely drowned, who stares through water now with eyes. She had been drowned and now stares with eyes of... He's looking at her. His job as poet is like a lifeguard who's supposed to... What's a lifeguard supposed to do? I guess they don't call it lifeguard for nothing. Guard lives. She's already drowned. She's already drowned. She's sitting there slumped in the parlor, but he can see her already drowned.
So Mrs. Ward's kind of put him in this really difficult position,
Yeah,
being like, okay,
save this girl who's
he's
doomed.
a poet, you're a poet, you can help her.
This happens to people all the time. I mean, I can't tell you how many times my dear mother has asked me to serve a certain office, to exemplify the Ivy League professor or something.
It's tough. I mean, like
You
these
can't
two
ever
people
fulfill
don't
that
actually.
role.
They
So you
don't.
feel sympathetic for Richard Wilbur.
Well, a little bit. I mean, because he's been asked to do this thing.
This is a red letter day for Richard.
Well, there's serious pressure on him. This girl is really.
He's remembering pressure, absolutely. Dave, how large is her refusal and how slight the genteel chat?
Again, he feels completely impotent. He feels like he's futile to...
What comparison is he making in poetic terms? Be meta-poetic a little bit here. How large is her refusal, how slight the genteel chat, whereby we recommend life. What's happening there? I knew I screwed things up by saying meta-poetic. Let's forget about that for a second. What is a large refusal?
Just a resistance, just to say no.
A big resistance, not a little resistance. Yeah.
It kind of harkens back to the Ezra Pound that we looked at with, I forget what the exact line was, but kind of talking the new morality.
All the while they were talking the new morality.
Yeah, and so the genteel chat kind of here echoes back to that just...
Oh yeah, I think you're right.
preconceived.
I think Wilbur is looking around this scene, realizing that the thin chat is really kind of not much rhetorically
And
or
it's like a
ritualistic.
performance, and it's
It's a
clearly a
performance.
performance. I feel like he feels like the whole thing is just so obviously set up to everyone there.
And
it's
as a contrast to
uncomfortable.
that, the doomed and in a sense already dead poet is the one of great resistance, of tremendous immensity, the immensely drowned great refusal. He's sort of saying, this is what poets are really. This is the dangerous side of poetry, and I'm kind of not doing that.
I think it's really tough for him to what Chris was saying too, he's looking around the room, he's feeling this pressure of this situation. Everyone knows exactly what's going on, but he's still being called upon to exemplify.
And does he?
I mean, yeah.
Max has already
we
told
already
us.
Figured that
He
out.
does. How large is her refusal and how slight the genteel chat whereby we recommend life of a summer afternoon, despite the brewing, get it, brewing dusk, which hints that it may end. It, the afternoon, right?
I think it's
But
much,
of course,
much
life,
bigger moment for him.
but life too. So Edna Ward, Kristen, what happens in the next stanza? Edna Ward lives to be what age?
She lives until 88,
88 years.
which is long life, and
It's a long life.
she's the one who is really
A
embodying.
life of boredom, monotony, ritualistic bullshit, and routine? No.
a life of grace and courage with a stiff upper lip of the New England matron who's
someone who really lives. This is, unless he's ironizing grace and courage, he is seeing Mrs. Ward as a model for a kind of longevity, success. Uh-oh. Do we have a problem?
so he's modeling himself against her in a way too.
Against?
Well, with her.
He's got two models for life. One is
Edna Ward.
the great refusal, which is essentially burning the candle at both ends and doomed and dead, but large. And then Edna Ward, who models a certain who's an aesthetic model, who's a model for decorous living and for longevity, the maintenance of a certain kind of culture.
So he may be saying that tradition is going to outlast the types of poets.
He's definitely saying that.
Right.
The question is whether he's willing to embrace it. Such grace and courage as a permit no tears. You were talking about the stiff upper lip. There's no crying in New England matronhood.
No crying at afternoon tea.
No crying at afternoon tea. The thin hand reaching out, the last word love. Can you do that? That little? Yes. We're both doing it. You just Mrs. Ward puts out her hand for not kissing. This is in France. Probably a little bit of a handshake that comes from the top. Yeah, look, can we do that? That's great.
I ended up shaking your thin hand.
And then love. It's an interesting word here because it's a great refusal kind of word, but at the same time, what's love in that handshake?
It's lovely.
Yeah, lovely. Or in fact, it's a noun that refers to the person who's saying goodbye. Mm-hmm. No, it's so nice to see you, love. Not sure if Mrs. Ward would actually say that, but. And then a period, and then the final stanza. Emily, outliving Sylvia, who condemned to live, we expected it to be die, condemned to live, studies for a decade, as she must, to state at last her brilliant negatives, like the great refusal, the large refusal, to state at last her brilliant negative, and here's the big line, in poems, and now finally we have the license to be metapoetic, because this is a poet who's visiting a kind of culture, an aesthetic model for decorum, formality, formalism. This is a neo-formalist poet. All right? And now finally we have poems that result from the negative example, the brilliant negative. And they are free and helpless and unjust. How do we reckon with the valuation of those words? Emily, give us a start.
I don't know, it seems somehow laudatory, but in this hesitant, ambiguous ways. It seems somehow to be aspiring to something free and helpless and unjust, but none of those words are entirely positive.
How does he feel about free?
Well, I guess you can infer from the sort of structure of the poem that he might admire abstractly and distantly, but he doesn't want to emulate it.
He can't emulate it, and he doesn't in this poem. I've had arguments with lots of people about this poem. And finally, I'm always saying, look, if he really wanted to embrace freedom, the poem wouldn't read like this. Free. This is really hard. Free. Plath is free. The poems are free. Free from what?
Unrestrained.
From
convention.
From convention and decorum. Even there in this room, she's still slumping here. You know, there's really no willingness to go. Wilbur is willing to play a role. And of course, he plays it all the time. He's really good at it. Plath won't even do that. Okay, so helpless? That's harder than free in a way. In poems, free and helpless. How can poems be helpless? Remember, we're getting to chapter 7 soon.
Well, if he's supposed to help her by, giving a certain poetic, not necessarily example in a poem, but in a person, her poems don't really help anybody because they sort of like think of a poem like Lady Lazarus talking about her,
they're unhelpful.
Second suicide.
They're
attempt.
unhelpful.
They're not exactly.
They're not guides to living as this is.
Well,
But
yeah.
And they
keep
also
going with helpless. Let's riff on helpless.
They refuse to be helped. they're
Yeah.
not interested in trying to be helpful.
It harkens back to the role of the lifeguard. Right? He's unhelpful. Her poems are helpless. Keep going. One more. Let's do one more connotation of helpless.
Well, I don't know. There seems to definitely be a moral implication in the kind of personal political role of poetry, and which Plath just doesn't describe to you in Wilbur's terms. So she doesn't kind of have that moral backbone to make her poems conform to that. Therefore, they're kind of helpless.
If there's no crying in New England matronhood or New England afternoon tea, the analogy is
She
to
can't
there's
help
no
but
crying in poems. This is why you get a toad clipped of a power mower who sits in the verge and dies slowly into stone. We're not really, the toad cries because his eyes are filling up with blood, but that's the only crying that goes on there. There's no crying here either. Right? This is a poem. So there's no crying in poetry, but there's plenty of it in Plath. In poems free and helpless and unjust. Who wants to deal with unjust finally? This is a tough one. If the poetry being distinguished from was Whitman or Ginsberg, then unjust might refer to unjustified. It might refer to the line of the poem, but that's not true for Plath, who writes in a fairly formal stanza, although it's wicked content. So what could unjust mean, Emily?
I don't know. I'm puzzled.
It's all right. Once in a while, we always end up asking you in the end, and you always stun us with brilliance. But this time you punted it all the way back over to Max and Molly. Unjust?
It doesn't seem to follow in this series between free and helpless.
It's probably the best thing about the poem, except it rhymes with must.
Yeah. I don't think of it as unjust as in like an unjust ruler or unfair, but rather in that it's not. I think it's more in that it's not justified. Sort of.
The poems are not justified.
They're lacking perhaps the occasion.
Who would have justification to complain?
I mean, it
Does
seems like
Sylvia have justification to complain? I don't know. This is really an open-ended question. From the point of view of this poem, I don't think so. I think actually if anybody has justification to complain is someone who's had a lifetime of experience. It might be actually Mrs. Ward. I'm not so sure he's taking such a strong position. Molly?
So it almost feels like he thinks she doesn't have anything to be so despondent
Where the
about.
hell did she get all this
angst.
deep craziness? I mean, she hasn't even
She's
lived.
got a good life.
Yeah.
I might put it differently in that
This would be the first time that's happened.
that the injustice that Wilbur sees is that this talented young woman would have so much depression consuming her.
Finally, however you read that last line, we have a poem which evidences itself as an answer to the question, what kind of life do we want to live? Not what kind of life do we envy or admire, but what kind of life do we live, and how shall we express the culture that underwrites, the way of living, the decorum that underwrites that life? How does the speaker feel about these qualities, free and helpless and unjust? I think they make him more than a little nervous. Does the poem offer evidence for how he feels about those terms? Well, if he embraces free, he hasn't done it here in the end. Unjust, whatever it means, must rhyme with must.